going to pick on a viewer, although I'm not going to mention your name because this is the first time that I picked on you, and you got to start out kind of gently. But he had a series of questions, and I'm going to answer all of them because who knows? I turn on the camera, I start blabbering away, knowing about the things I talk about, and probably skip enough details to make it confusing to you. So do not be afraid to email me or ask in the comment section. Clarify it. What the heck are you talking about? First of all, mulberry and mulberry bows. Mulberry, the wood. This fellow lives in South Africa, and apparently mulberries were imported to South Africa. Which mulberries, I don't know, because keep in mind, just like the oaks and the maples and stuff like that there, you can say, I'm making a maple bow. What are the characteristics? I don't know. Is it silver maple? Is it sugar maple? They will share certain characteristics, amongst members of the group, but sometimes the differences between some maples, let's say, are more than some differences between certain oaks and maples. So you really have to clarify, and that's when you get into trouble with common names. You're talking about white mulberry, red mulberry, which I believe, didn't look this stuff up. This is past memories. I think red mulberry is the only mulberry tree native to North America, and that's the one we typically use. The one that stains your car red when you park under it. But it's a question. People say in forums that you need to make mulberry bows 15% wider than other woods. Let's get into specifics. 15% wider than a red oak bow or a maple? Generally, my mulberry loving friends, people are comparing mulberry to osage because even though they're not the same trees, they share a lot of common characteristics as far as, being great bow wood. Good elastic modulus of elasticity, decent tensional strength, good compressional strength. But consider mulberry as Osage light. So when you say you need to make a mulberry bow 15% wider than other woods, it's always in contrast to Osage. Those two group together, just like peanut butter and jelly. If you want to make two long bows, let's just throw numbers out there, 68 inches long, right? And you want to have proportionally kind of similar, as far as parallel limbs and then going to a taper and a narrow deep handle. You want to make a mulberry bow, Osage bow, both 60 pounds, same draw length. Okay, I would make a mulberry bow a little wider. 15%? It depends on the draw weight you're going for. Let's say you want to make those 68-inch bows, mulberry, Osage, same looking bows. You want to make them 40 pounds? Yeah, you can get away with making the Osage bow a little narrower, but you can make them dimensionally the same, width and everything. If you want to go to higher weights, that's when you have to start going, gotta make the mulberry bow wider. You want to make an 80-pound mulberry bow and an 80-pound Osage, go beyond 15%. It's a curve. It's by feeling. You might break it, whatever. If you rawhide back it or sinew back it, you probably still have to make the mulberry bow wider because it's Osage light. Those are the comparisons. Osage mulberry, wider. Mulberry bow compared to a red oak bow, same width. Mulberry bow opposed to a white oak bow, make it wider. Here's a vast difference between white oak and red oak. Very reliable bow woods, but I can take my Renaissance bow, just kind of a double taper English longbow looking thing. I can make them dimensionally exactly the same, red oak, white oak. I've done this. The red oak Renaissance bow, ELB looking thing, 45, 50 pounds. This is an actual example. The white oak one, 70 pounds, 30-inch draw length. And the white oak can handle that. You know, so you're in summation, be extremely careful with comparing woods using their common names. Get right down to the species, my friends. Okay, then next up, it was curious. I refer to the way dyed it red, blood red. Pretty much finished. He was confused over my use of the wet method of sinew backing. And that just simply means let's do that again. All sinew backing is wet. I just refer to my wet method because at room temperature, it's wet and not gelled. This actually is gelled. I need to put it in a warm water bath. That's the only reason I call my sinew backing method, this one, that I've rediscovered. I didn't invent it by a long shot. My wet method is just to distinguish it between using a double boiler, hot hide glue, and a very watered down solution of, you're not like getting the bow wet, you know, and then just sticking it on there. I mentioned there's 3 parts really to sinew backing, and this again needed to be clarified. I mentioned with Osage, with mulberry, with black locust, I'll put them in the shower and I'll scrub the oil off with a detergent. Hey, not with maple, not with oak, not with the other woods. I'm only shower scrubbing Osage, mulberry, and why not black locust? It's not as oily as the other 2, but want to remove the oils from it. If I'm heat bending Osage or mulberry or black locust or oak or anything, overheat, not steaming, but just hot stuff, you know. And I want to get very severe curves in it. Distinct bends. I'll actually rub grease on the bow. I'm rubbing grease on a bow that I want to sinew back. That's generally kind of bad, but grease it, heat it, and then I will, again, scrub it, shower scrub it, because I just added oil to an oily wood. I'll also make a lye solution, and this you need to be careful with. You need to be careful when you're working with a strong lye solution. Goggles, rubber gloves, and don't get it on good clothes. Not your Arbor Master stuff. And I'll wash the bow over a sink, being very careful with that stuff, not to splash it around. And that'll not only wash the grease off, it'll soapify it. You take fat, you take lye, you create soap. Ooh, in a very dangerous step. That's, you know, I don't scrub the bow in the shower and just lay the sinew on it. I let it dry. Whether or not I'm just scrubbing it in the shower with detergent or a lye rinse. And I like using a lye rinse because it changes the color of stuff. You can actually see the orange and the yellow in the case of mulberry getting washed off. If you hit a lye solution onto oak or anything else, it changes the color too. It's really cool effect. You can even use bleach in bleach wood to kind of antique it. But yeah, that's it. I'm not washing the heck out of that stuff and then just laying sinew on the back. That is step 1. Cleaning the back. In the case of mulberry and Osage, when I'm shower scrubbing a wood that doesn't want to absorb glue that easy, hey, these bare hands do not touch that back again or anywhere I'm going to add sinew to that bow until I'm sizing it and when I'm laying on the sinew. I'll use paper towel, I'll use gloves. But once with those oily woods, just Osage and mulberry, predominantly. Black locust I just carried in that because it's also a very hard kind of wood that doesn't want to absorb glue that easy. Those are the only ones that I'm super careful with. This stuff, it doesn't matter. You have to be careful, wash your hands, but it absorbs glue like a sponge. Step 2, you washed it. This is step 2, sizing the bag. Now, don't be confused with scrubbing it in the shower with a detergent. When I say you use a little cup of water with a spritz of Dawn detergent and just wet the bowl. I'm not soaking it, I'm not washing it, I'm just wetting the back of the bowl because I want that first layer, especially with Osage and mulberry and black locust. Again, very hardwoods, maybe not so much in hard maple, but I could see you doing that. I'm just wetting the bowl with a little bit of water and detergent, so when I take my full strength hide glue out of that pot, it's full strength, that I'm kind of watering it down, just that first layer with the water and the Dawn. I just want that glue to soak into the warmed bowl. Warm your bowl first. You want to do everything possible to keep it from gelling and everything possible to allow it to soak in that first sizing layer. Let it dry. Not for weeks, but, you know, a matter of hours. You just want it to dry down a little bit. Now, once you have that watered down with Dawn, first layer of sizing on, then you can go to town, size it wherever you're going to wrap to, let it dry a couple hours, then do it again. Let it dry a couple. Now it's sized. That's the second part. Part 1, washing. Part 2, sizing. Now it's part 3. Any way you want to sinew back. You know, I love this. All I need to do is just take it out of the freezer and it's ready to go. Yes, it's a little bird's nesty at this point, but I can still pull those fibers out because they're slippery. That's it. Okay, next up. I'm really loving these tips, but I should have made it a thumbs. I use this for 1 inch. That's how I measure. This is 1 inch. Doesn't matter if it's plus or minus a little bit. I should have brought this down a little bit so they were a little bit longer. But I like these. I don't need to. This is important. I've been talking about building up a collar on there to keep the sinew from sliding. Not necessary. Let me tip this down a little bit. There we go. A slip loop. This is a plated loop. I just took this sinew when I was making the string, put it back upon itself, and made a loop. That's not the loop that goes over the tip. I put the string back through it so it can tighten. So I mean by a slip loop. So I've got that there. And there's no collar built up. It's just the sinew to the wood. And boy, it holds. You will never see me, except maybe in the case of my Renaissance bow. This is just, oh, I know all sorts of Boyer's knots. Okay, just go around. You'll never see me. I go under, the wabbit goes through the hole. And then this is, pay particular attention. You have to do this twist so both those ends come out the same direction. This is one kind of knot. Watch it slip off. And, yeah, I didn't tighten it down far enough. Let me do that again. It wouldn't be the type of knot I would use. This is just kind of a temporary kind of knot, just to demonstrate. Make sure they come out the same way. Tighten it down. Tighten your knot down. Tie, dress, and set. Arbor Master. Okay. Yeah, of course. Twice in a row. But my point is, I'm going to do a different knot here. I'm going to do one that's not going to come away. I'm going to do a triple one. My point being is that you don't need to build up a collar. There it goes. It holds it nicely. No collar, it's just the end of that wrap. And now we know. Yeah. Where was I going with that? You'll never see me making a 2-loop string. Don't like them. At the most, I would have 1 loop. At the other end, it would be tied on. And the reason being is you can adjust your brace height. I would go hunting paddle bows, and I can hit stuff with these things. I am James. This is my bow. I hit an 80-yard target with a paddle bow. If I'm just going to go out target shooting and it's not going to be braced all day long, I might adjust my string by adjusting where that knot is on it. So I've got a lower brace height, or a higher brace height. If I'm going to go hunt with it and it's going to be strung all day long, I'll probably adjust my string so it's a lower brace height. I like the ability to have an adjustable length string on every bow. There's no reason. Even Tim Baker, I think, in the Traditional Bowyer's Bibles, it was one of the authors, said there's no reason to have 2 loops. Always have a tied-on end. And so I force you to do that. If you have a bow that I make that's completely finished, you're not going to get a 2-loop string. I don't like them. I do not like 2-loop strings. It just is what it is. You know, you can certainly make a 2-loop string, but if you have a paddle bow and it's got the pin knocks, forget unstringing it by sliding it down because these limbs get wide. It's a pin knock. You pull it off the top, you make your loop bigger because it's a slip loop, and then just put it up from the bottom, and it's now set to string. You know, it's one of my quirks. I like to have a slip loop on one end and a knot on the other. You're forced, with my resolve to give you a one end tied on string and a slip loop, you are forced to now learn how to use a sinew string. Sinew strings are variable depending on humidity, temperature, whatever. They will change length. And so you have to have a knot on one end. So that is it. I am going to work on bows now. Have a good one. I hope I answered some of your questions. This is a long video. It says 17:36. I'm going to cut it off before 18. Here we go. Hang on.